In Barcelona, the European Swimming Championships confirmed the fine condition of France's sprint swimmers. In the 100-meter breaststroke, Roger Menu was beaten in the final only by former world record holder Pankin of the Soviet Union, who touched home 1 second ahead of him. The 100-meter freestyle gave new European record holder Michel Rousseau a chance to chalk up another sensational performance. Taking the lead from the start, Rousseau, in the 4th lane from the bottom of the screen, was first to turn at the halfway mark in 24 7/10 seconds. None of the other stars in this final, the Russians Kulyikov and Ilyichev and the East German Matthes, could worry Rousseau, who finished in 52 9/10 seconds, only 1/10 of a second away from his new European record, a gold medal he had long worked for. The 100th anniversary of the proclamation of the French Republic was commemorated on September the 4th on the Place de l'Hôtel de Ville in Paris in the presence of President Georges Pompidou. In the words of Prime Minister Jacques Chaban-Delmas, the Republic signifies political democracy. Monsieur and Madame Pompidou on this occasion inaugurated an exhibition in the Hall of the Provosts devoted to mementos of the Republic, which was proclaimed a century ago, the Third Republic, a regime which lasted longer than any other in modern French history and which actually has continued to this day despite changes of constitution. Back in 1870, Napoleon III had proclaimed that the empire signified peace, but this imperial peace was soon to go up in smoke. The disaster of Sedan soon followed. From the ashes of the eagle, the Republic was born amid sore trials, but all difficulties were surmounted and the state was rebuilt. These pictures evoking the turn of the century belong to what has been called France's golden age, la Belle Époque. On the political scene, Monsieur Thiers, Léon Gambetta, and Jules Ferry worked out and consolidated the institutions of the Republic. The age of scientific discoveries, inaugurated by Louis Pasteur, continued with Édouard Branly, inventor of the radioconductor, and with Pierre and Marie Curie, discoverers of radioactivity, a momentous discovery indeed. With Émile Zola, literature claimed its right to take an active part in the drive for political and social change, the most ardent champion of which was Jean Jaurès, until he was assassinated along with world peace. Born out of war, the Third Republic had not managed to stem the tide of dangers, but in the World War it did find the men needed to lead it to victory, Clemenceau, Joffre, and many others. The national unity forged in the war did not survive the advent of peace. Political divisions created ever new social upheavals, leading to the Popular Front government in 1936. Léon Blum's experiment lasted just long enough to give the working class a 40-hour week and paid vacations, but this in itself was no mean achievement. Unfortunately, another social and military tidal wave was to sweep all that aside, and an invaded and occupied France had to dig deep into its will to live in order to ensure its revival once the smoke of another world war had cleared. That was the Third Republic with its happy and its sad hours, but even today it still stands for a certain style of life symbolized by great artists like Rodin and Renoir. A modern hospital. On the edge of the Bois de Boulogne, the new hospital of the French government Social Aid Administration commemorates the man who was the most illustrious surgeon of his time, Ambrose Pare, the father and restorer of French surgery in the 16th century. An ancient and venerable name, yet the hospital is one of the most modern in France. It was designed and built to meet the three big requirements of today: improvement of reception and hospitalization procedures, application of the university reform, since a hospital is also a school of medicine, and finally, integration of modern medical techniques. Today, the Ambroise Pare Hospital may be regarded as a model hospital in a suburban zone with an ever-increasing population, which till now did not have adequate facilities along these lines. A privileged place in it is reserved for the blood bank, in the light of the ever-growing importance of blood transfusion techniques. There are no more large dormitories laboratory wards, but only rooms with 1, 2, or 4 beds, 2/3 of all the rooms being private rooms. The medical installations are in keeping with the great progress made in this field in recent years. Operating equipment, notably, meets all the speed and efficiency requirements of the surgeon. A considerable effort has also been made to improve and to personalize paramedical service. The patients may order on perforated cards individual meals, which are always served hot, a minor revolution in the hospital world. The Ambrose Pare Hospital, prototype in a series which is soon to be ready, bears witness by its comfort and superior medical conditions to the ever greater effort which society must make for the welfare of the sick and ailing.
Ce soir, tandis que dans la tristesse et la ferveur, les Français sont rassemblés pour la célébration.
Tonight, France is saddened by a great loss in the person of one of its greatest writers, one who was always staunchly faithful to the ideals of his country, François Mauriac. He was liked and disliked, but no one could be indifferent to him. He had been a great writer and a fortunate writer. The young man whose first thin book of verse, Les Mains Jointes, had once been hailed by Maurice Barrès, was to achieve the pinnacle of official glory, election to the French Academy, and the Nobel Prize in 1952. For his 80th year, the city of Bordeaux all but deified him. His political thinking, which did not prompt him to join the opposition when General de Gaulle took office, earned him yet other honors. But in difficult periods, he always had the courage to stand sincerely by his opinions.
André Malraux m'a dit un jour que la grande différence entre lui et moi, c'est que...
André Malraux told me one day that the big difference between him and me was that I'd loved my childhood while he'd hated his.
Je me suis souvent demandé quel homme différent j'aurais pu être si c'était...
I've often wondered what a different man I'd have been if my mother had died when I was 18 months old and my father had brought me up, because my mother, who did raise me, was an impassioned Christian.
Une chrétienne passionnée, et mon père, que je n'ai pas connu,
whereas my father, whom I never knew, had been an unbeliever, maybe an atheist.
Je retrouve ces deux courants en moi.
Both streaks exist in me, but religion actually won out. I belonged to the right-wing bourgeoisie, very narrow and closed to social problems.
De droite, très étroit et très fermé aux problèmes sociaux.
It wasn't in spite of the fact that I was religious, but because of it, that when I was 18, I became interested in certain social problems.
C'est grâce à mon christianisme que, à 18 ans, je me suis ouvert à certains problèmes.
Weighed down with glory, François Mauriac liked to go back to gather a bit of strength again now and then from the soil of his estate at Malaga, a family estate haunted by the shades of the fictional characters he has created. It was there that we called on him at grape harvest time, and the same week he wrote in his famous Block Nut column, with the rich yet dry malice that characterized him, "Bless God through the grace of this September, so luminous that I was thankful to friends who came, because they saw Malaga in the only suitable light, light that will never end. It will never end because the Pate cameraman came for 2 days to film me, my house and me, not for a paper, but for their files. It's for later, for after," they said. Have I any chance of ever seeing this film? I asked. Cautiously they answered, well, no, it's not too likely. They might as well have slapped me on the back and said, be brave. So I said, as casually as I could, then all this is of no great interest to me. They answered, but it will be to us. That touched me. I thanked them, thinking to myself that survival was my own lookout. I moved about as the photographers told me to. These were to be my eternal gestures. And then the film went back in its can and will stay there, as I'll stay in mine. But at least there'll be a possibility of its coming out, provided someone feels like taking it out. On that day, François Mauriac also talked about his death with the bittersweet gravity of believers.
Elle est devenue une présence toute proche, une forme voilée qui se dessine.
It has become a very close presence, a veiled form in black, looming at a distance we cannot gauge, but its shadow covers us. We know that to touch it, all we have to do is stretch out our hand.
Et que tout ce que nous avons cru, professé,
and that everything we have believed, professed, asserted concerning the enigma, the secret of which it shields, is on the verge of receiving eternal confirmation or denial.
ou un démenti.